Hi, my name is Hasha Unibita Zabridin from Group JBA 243C and my ID number is 2021-149-771, and this video is about capital structure. What is capital structure? Capital structure is the amount of debt and or equity that used by a company to fund its operations and finance its assets. The debt to equity ratio or debt to capital ratio is a common way to express a company's capital structure. The balance sheet includes both debt and equity. Assets purchased with debt or equity are also listed on the balance sheet. Long-term debt, short-term debt, common stock, and preferred stock can be all part of the company's capital structure. When analyzing a company's capital structure, the proportion of short-term debt versus long-term debt is considered. Company's optimal capital structure is the best combination of debt and equity financing that maximizes the market value while lowering the cost of capital. Managers usually try to operate within such a range of values because pinpointing the optimal capital structure can be difficult. They must also consider the signals sent to the market by their financing decisions. The debt or equity ratio is used by potential equity investors to determine how risky a company is. They also consider the amount of leverage other businesses in same industry use to see if the company is using unusual amount of debt in its capital structure, assuming these businesses have an optimal capital structure. There are a few factors that affect capital structure decision. The first one is business size. A company's ability to raise funds is influenced by its size and scale. Small businesses have a difficult time obtaining long-term financing because of the size of their operations. Creditors are hesitant to lend them money. Even if they are approved for these loans, they must accept high interest rates and strict repayment terms. It restricts their ability to expand their company. Next is financial plan flexibility. In an organization, the capital must allow for both contractions and relaxations in plans. Debenture and loans can be repaid whenever the need arises, while share capital cannot be refunded at any time. Plans are more rigid. As a result, the company should have issued debenture and other loans to complete the capital structure. The last one is competition. If a company operates in a more competitive business environment, it should have more equity shares in its capital structure. In comparison to businesses with less competition, their earnings are more volatile. Financial distress occurs when a business or individual is unable to generate sufficient revenue or income to fulfill or pay its financial obligations. This is usually due to the high fixed cost, a high percentage of illiquid assets, or revenue that is affected by economic downturns. Individuals may experience financial distress as a result of poor budgeting, overspending, having too much debt, being sued, or losing their job. Ignoring the signs of financial distress until they become out of hand can be disastrous. Since the company or individual's commitments have grown too high and cannot be repaid, there may come a time when severe financial distress can no longer be remedied. If this occurs, bankruptcy might be the only way out. There is a trade-off between the takes advantage of debt and the cost of financial distress. Debt financing is quite common in today's organizational system. To finance their operations, businesses take on debt with a short or long-term return. Cost of financial distress can be divided into two categories, which is direct and indirect costs. Direct costs are costs incurred directly by a company that is unable to meet its obligations. For example, actual cash expenses related to bankruptcy. Indirect costs are costs incurred indirectly, such as loss of customers, creditors, suppliers, and valuable employees. Now we look at the effects of debt financing. Because of the current value of minimal distress cost, the probability of distress is low in this situation. As a result, every small increase in that value raises the present value of these expenses. It will eventually equal the increase in the present value of the tax shield. As a result of tax shield, bankruptcy will rise quickly, lowering the firm's value. Agency cost of equity is a cost of a company's shareholders monitoring its management when the shareholders believe the management is not working in the best interest of the company's shareholders. In the other word, agency costs are incremental costs that arise from conflicts of interest between the principal and the agent. For a variety of reasons, management may fail to work in the best interest of shareholders, including the personal agendas and company growth that makes it difficult to communicate the information to shareholders and reduce the management incentive. There are a few types of agency costs. The first one is monitoring cost. This cost is associated with supervising management that the strong corporate governance reduce this cost. The second one is bonding cost. It is assumed by the management to assure shareholders that the managers are working in the shareholders' best interest. For example, the implicit cost of non-complete agreement. The last one is residual loss, that this cost incurred despite the sufficient bonding and monitoring. Pecking order theory is a theory about a company capital structure in which managers are required to follow a specific hierarchy when choosing sources of finance in the company. According to the hierarchy, internal financing is given the first priority, then external sources. When enough funds cannot be raised through internal financing, debt is considered the first to generate funds, and finally the equity if funds are needed. Pecking order theory is a valid and useful tool for determining how information asymmetry affects financing costs. However, it doesn't provide any quantitative data on how information flow influence financing costs. Without providing a quantitative metric to measure how it must be done, pecking order theory describes what and how financing should be raised. Pecking order theory can be used to help choose financing rounds, but there are many other factors to be considered. Pecking order theory will provide a useful way to finance when combined with other metrics. In signaling hypothesis, managers will choose to elevate financing through debt, bonds, or loan because they wouldn't want to share the financial gain with more shareholders when the firm's future looks good. Instead, they would rather take on debt and pay a small interest to the creditors. Default is almost unthinkable. When a company's outlook is in negative side, its executive may decide to increase the capital by issuing stock to spread the risk of potential losses among a larger number of shareholders. They might default and be pressured to go bankrupt if they took on debt and couldn't repay it. The signaling theory only works in the case of asymmetry information, which means investors and managers have different information. Simply put, according to the signaling theory, managers using debt financing is a good sign of firm prosperity. When managers use equity financing, it's a bad sign for future company investment. So that's all for my video presentation. Thank you for watching and listening.